We are in the Digit test labs today for a brutal performance and battery drain marathon between three heavyweights in the sub 50,000 rupees smartphone price segment: the Poco X8 Pro Max, the iQOO 15R, and the OnePlus 15R. Now on paper, the Poco's 9000 mAh battery has a huge advantage going into this, but the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 in the iQOO and OnePlus is a very efficient chipset. I've got the brightness synced, the performance setup ready, and a lot of coffee waiting. Let's get started. We are doing things a bit differently today. Since these phones are performance first machines, we'll dive straight into the deep end with gaming. I've roped in our resident pro players Aman, Yogesh and Himanshu to push these phones to the absolute limit. They'll be cycling through 1.5 hours of high intensity BGMI, Asphalt and Genshin Impact. As for the setup, all phones are 100% charged and brightness is set to 500 nits manually. The display profiles are set to natural, the refresh rates are set to default, and all phones are connected to the same 5 GHz Wi-Fi network. So we've got the Poco's massive 9000 mAh battery going up against the high efficiency 7600 mAh in the iQOO and 7400 mAh in the OnePlus. Let's see which phone performs the best and has the most battery left by the end of 6.5 hours. Round 1 of gaming, we start with BGMI, and straight out of the lobby, all three phones were running at a smooth 120 FPS, but 10 minutes in and the heat started talking. So while playing BGMI, the iQOO 15R spiked to around 41.3 degrees Celsius early, which caused its frame rate to dip slightly, while the OnePlus 15R held its ground at around 118 FPS. The Poco X8 Pro Max was sitting pretty at a locked 120 FPS and barely even broke a sweat at around 36 degrees Celsius. I guess that extra thermal headroom on the Poco is already showing its worth, and you can see that reflected in these stability numbers on your screen right now. By the time we hit the 30-minute mark on the timer and swapped over to Asphalt Legends, the efficiency story started to get interesting. Both the Poco and iQOO were at 96% battery left after 30 minutes into the test, but the Poco was running a full 5 degrees cooler. That's the difference you actually feel in your palms when you are in an intense session and your phone is under load. Check out the frame rate consistency for this round in the stats coming up on your screen. So as we pushed into Genshin Impact, the absolute GPU killer, the OnePlus actually managed to claw back some battery percentage, sitting at 90% after an hour, but it was the Poco that kept the gameplay feeling the most fluid, even pushing up to 90 FPS at one point, while others stayed locked at 60. If you look at the performance graph for this round, the Poco's lead is pretty much clear. And with that, we have crossed the 90-minute mark and the gaming round is officially in the books. The iQOO and OnePlus are tied at 82% battery, which is respectable, but the Poco X8 Pro Max is leading the pack at 86%. So with the heavy gaming session out of the way, we gave the phones and the team a bit of a breather with a 2-hour YouTube video playback round. And honestly, when we talk performance, in this sub 50,000 rupees segment, we are being spoiled by all three displays on these smartphones. In fact, the iQOO 15R and the OnePlus 15R are pushing some serious numbers here. For instance, the iQOO specifically boasts a staggering 5000 nits peak brightness, and HDR content playback literally pops on this thing with superb clarity. The OnePlus isn't far behind with its 165Hz panel, making it the smoothest phone on this table. But then there's the Poco X8 Pro Max. Its 1.5K AMOLED panel hits a solid 3500 nits, and with Dolby Vision support, it delivers a punchy, vibrant calibration that just makes everything look expensive. More importantly, the X8 Pro Max achieves its peak brightness across 25% of the display area, whereas other two devices only hit those peaks on 1% of the screen. This results in a better overall display experience for the Poco because of that much larger bright area. Overall, you can't go wrong with either phone when it comes to the tuning and how well the color and contrast come out, whether you're watching something or gaming. More importantly, look at the efficiency. After 2 hours of continuous YouTube video streaming, the Poco X8 Pro Max is still leading with 81% battery life, followed by the iQOO 15R at 75% and the OnePlus at 71%. So even after 3.5 hours of total torture, the best part is that at this point, none of these phones is even warm to the touch. But as we move into the camera round, the OnePlus is sitting at 31 degrees Celsius, the iQOO at 30 degrees Celsius, and the Poco is the coolest of the bunch, hovering between 29 and 30 degrees Celsius. So we are kicking off an hour of a video recording split between the rear and front cameras. This is where things usually start to heat up. While the recording rolls, let's take a quick look at the camera hardware of these phones. So all these three devices sport dual rear setups featuring a 50 megapixel primary sensor paired with an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera. On the front, the OnePlus and iQOO are packing 32 megapixel sensors, while the Poco features a 20 megapixel snapper. For video recording, all three devices support up to 4K 60 FPS from the rear camera. However, on the selfie side of things, the OnePlus and iQOO both support 4K recording from the front, while the Poco is capped at 1080p. With that, let's switch to the front-facing camera recording. For this one, we're going to fast forward straight to the end of this round, but before hitting stop, a quick check of the temperatures shows that the Poco is still doing the best on thermals with 32.2 degrees Celsius surface temperatures versus 33.5 degrees Celsius on the iQOO and 35.2 degrees Celsius on the OnePlus 15R. And finally, after the video recording round with a total of 4.5 hours now gone, the Poco X8 Pro Max is still in the lead with 74% battery remaining, followed by the iQOO 15R at 67% and the OnePlus 15R at 60%. With that, I'm now going to run an hour of Instagram on all phones because let's be honest, in today's day and age, whichever phone we use, most folks spend a lot of time on Instagram, and in doing so, how well are these phones optimized? Let's fast forward to the end of the round, and at this point, the Poco X8 Pro Max is literally flexing with its humongous battery. So the Poco is still leading with 70% battery left. The iQOO 15R has 62%, while the OnePlus 15R is trailing at 55%. So we started with the most intense session, that is gaming, and it is only fitting to end all of this with a heavy hitting 1 hour performance gauntlet. I'm going to run a few benchmarks here, and this will take a serious toll on performance and battery life. But first, the hardware specifications. The iQOO 15R and the OnePlus 15R are both powered by the latest Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 chip built for quick bursts of speed, but the Poco X8 Pro Max is doing something different. It is debuting the MediaTek Dimensity 9500S. This is an all big core architecture, and on paper it is designed to stay faster for longer under sustained load. All three phones are paired with a 12 GB of LPDDR5X Ultra RAM and UFS 4.1 storage, so the baseline for speed is also incredibly high. Now the question is, under a sustained workload, does the Poco's massive 9000 mAh battery and specialized cooling give it the edge, or will the Snapdragon's raw power pull ahead? So Geekbench 6 gives us our first look at raw CPU power. OnePlus leads the pack with massive single and multi-core scores, with iQOO following close behind. But the Poco too held its own with a very respectable 8366 multi-core score. In Antutu, and this is where the Poco X8 Pro Max shows off its hardware prowess. You see, the iQOO 15R takes the crown for raw numbers, nearly hitting the 3 million mark, but it is paying for it with a spicy 47 degrees Celsius surface temperature. The real story though is between the OnePlus and the Poco. The OnePlus 15R scored around 2.89 million, but it started sweating at around 45.5 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, the Poco X8 Pro Max actually outscored it with a massive 2.92 million, all while staying a full 2 degrees cooler at around 43.5 degrees Celsius. In the 3D Mark wildlife stress test, the OnePlus 15R put up a massive best loop of 16,545. The Poco X8 Pro Max impressed impresses with its performance floor. Even at its lowest point, the Poco never dipped below 44 FPS, outperforming both the OnePlus and the iQOO in raw consistency. The iQOO 15R struggled to keep pace here with a best loop of just 9,768. However, to iQOO's credit, it was the coolest of the three this time, with peak temperatures of around 42.5 degrees Celsius after the 3D Mark round. Last up, the CPU throttling test. While the iQOO puts up a high 402,000 chips average, its stability absolutely tanks to 32%. The OnePlus is much more stable at 88%, but it settles for the lowest 284,000 average. The Poco X8 Pro Max hits the sweet spot here, maintaining 80% stability while delivering a solid average of 296,000. And after a grueling 6.5-hour gauntlet, the results are in. To no surprise, the Poco X8 Pro Max walks with a massive 52% battery remaining. The iQOO 15R puts up a valiant fight, finishing at 41%, while the OnePlus 15R finishes at 34%. Also, if you look at the battery drain breakdown on your screens, the math is fascinating. Despite having the largest 9,000 mAh battery, the Poco actually delivered the least raw mAh in almost every category, especially in gaming and video playback. So basically, what did we learn today? If you are into heavy gaming or just don't want to carry a power bank, the Poco X8 Pro Max is in a league of its own. It didn't just win on battery life, it won on thermal discipline, staying relatively cool while maintaining a performance that actually earns the Pro Max tag. The competition is no joke though. The iQOO 15R is a raw power beast in its own right, while the OnePlus 15R remains the choice for anyone who prefers the specialized optimization and ecosystem that the brand brings to the table. But for the performance per watt crown, the Poco X8 Pro Max takes the win by proving you can have flagship power without the flagship price tag. That's all for this video. I'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you for watching.